I'm Eric from Longbox Review.
I'm Peter from the Daily Rios, and this is episode 33 of Eric and Peter's Legion Project Podcast. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Legion Project Podcast. This is Peter.
And this is Eric.
And welcome to our Legion of Superheroes focused podcast, where we are taking a look at the 1980s Baxter Run volume, specifically with this episode, issue 33, the second chapter of the big Universo project. Eric, are you excited?
Very excited, Peter. This is a culmination of 4 years of our own work on this show.
That's right.
This is, I actually am. This has been fun getting into the Universo project as we've been talking about it off and on. We talked about this last episode, our namesake for the title of the show and all that stuff. So, And again, I'm reading stuff that it's totally new to me in this Legion run, and so every issue now is like this, almost like a wonderful little Christmas gift. The potential is there for lots of fun and interesting things.
Good. That means this is a 4-part storyline within this volume and we're on chapter 2, as I said. So that means once we hit chapter 3, once we hit chapter 4, it's all downhill from there.
I was going to say something like that too. It's like, what comes next?
A lot of uncertainty. As you mentioned, as you said, you're reading new issues, and while there are a bunch of issues that I know I've read up to the next major storyline, I'm the 40s and the 50s. I'm real sketchy on.
Really?
I bet you there's going to be a run of issues in there where I'm going to go, wow, I don't think I've ever read this issue. I'm fairly certain. They've been sitting in my collection, maybe flipped through, but I have very spotty memory of all of that stuff. So everything leading up to the Superboy storyline, I'm there. We're there. I'm good. Millennium, yep, got all that. Some of the anniversary issues I remember reading, but the actual connectivity to it all, we're probably gonna discover that together.
Okay, good.
We'll let listeners know that we are usually trying to follow publishing chronology as we read, right? So we're reading the Legion of Superheroes title, and issue 33 came out in January of 1987. So we're starting 1987 for DC Comics. And for anyone that maybe this is your first episode, we try to also look at what else has come out from DC at that time that might feature the Legion of Superheroes. So we do that at the end of, like the last third of the episode. So it's going to be fun to see post-Crisis, post John Byrne Superman, post DC history of the DC, like what is in store? Where is the Legion going to show up in other places? There's some upcoming Legion centric titles that are maybe don't have to deal with continuity but have to deal with the Legion, one of which we will talk about later this episode. Maybe some, I forget, they might show up in Secret Origins at some point, whether it's 1987, 1988. So we're going to continue to follow their trajectory in this very weird place that DC is at the time.
Yeah, it's like a new universe, but not really. Things are still kind of gelling from the crisis, the aftermath of that. And yeah, it's a weird time right now.
Yeah.
Sort of like current publishing continuity at DC Comics. So
Nothing ever changes.
that's right.
Right. Okay. I think that's probably going to be a quick preamble there. I think, unless you have anything, we could probably go into issue number 33.
Okay. Before we do that, though, I do have a special message for you, Peter.
Okay.
I want to play this. Okay.
Okay.
And you could cut this out if you'd like.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Peter.
Whoa.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. My name and everything.
Yeah.
That's
You can
awesome.
find anything on the internet.
That's true. That's true. Yes, we are recording on my actual birthday. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Look at how dedicated I am. It's my gift.
I know. When Peter and I were discussing what's our next recording session, and I said I had this weekend open myself, but I knew it was his birthday, so I asked him, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And yeah, he was sure.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah. Why not? Let's do it. Podcasting.
It's just another day.
That's right. That's right. If I could podcast every day, I would.
All right. Shall we jump into issue 33, Peter?
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right. Issue 33, the Universo Project, Chapter 2, Forgotten Planet. This is by Paul Levitz, writer, Greg LaRocque, penciler, Mike DiCarlo is the inker, John Costanza does the letters, Carl Gafford the colors, with Arn Starr doing an inking assist, and Karen Berger as the editor. And finally, another lovely cover by Steve Lytle. Synopsis, the TLDR version, Universo's conquest continues as the galaxy falls under his hypnotic power. Okay, so still prisoners on an unknown world, the 4 trapped Legionnaires, Saturn Girl, Dream Girl, Brainiac 5, and Chameleon Boy need more time to plan their escape. So Chameleon Boy suggests they return to the barracks and pretend nothing's changed. Saturn Girl rebuilds superficial mental blocks in order to fool their jailers. Wildfire, White Witch, Tellus, and Quislet battle Zamir, which does not go well as the Legionnaires are all transported elsewhere. White Witch and Wildfire to a desert, Tellus inside a snow globe, and Quislet, he went somewhere. Chameleon Boy surveys the compound in various forms. Later, Saturn Girl attempts to contact her husband telepathically. Brainiac 5 arrives and offers his support. Dream Girl is about to leave and join her friends when she encounters Atmos, who is very glad to be near her again. Chameleon Boy locates the source of the water fountain, and after Saturn Girl telepathically transfers Chameleon Boy's knowledge of this, Brainiac 5 thinks he has a plan. On Earth, Universo commands President Desai to issue some new decrees and has a new idea regarding the Legion. Oh no. The other prisoners get splashed with water from the fountain, and Saturn Girl explains that the Legionnaires altered the chemicals in the water to free them and calls for their aid in escaping, which Atmos gladly answers by destroying the assembled spy cams. In space, the Dominators refuse to meet with Ambassador Relnick, accusing him of treachery. When the Dominators attack Relnick's ship, Mon-El, Ultra Boy, and Block go into space to deter the Dominators. And as the Dominators leave, Relnick orders the ship to fire on the Legionnaires. On the prison planet, the prisoners attack the control center that Chameleon Boy found, and then they too are attacked by a giant robot, but they are able to render it inert. Brainiac 5 then uses the equipment to help build escape pods for those who need them, and after everyone has left, he joins his fellow Legionnaires in their own makeshift transport, and they blast off the planet. And finally, on Earth, science police officer Erin enjoys an evening with boyfriend Jan, who tells her, quote, "Life is so much simpler now that we don't have anything to worry about anymore." Dun, dun, dun.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap. I felt like I was talking forever. That's a lot of plot.
That's a lot of plot for a chapter and a story arc that is uncharacteristically taking its time
Yeah.
for this title, right? I don't know if you got a sense of that with this. I was trying to think of this chapter and this chapter alone as part of a 4-part story against, say, the opening 5-part story or some of the Censor Girl stuff, and said, oh, that's kind of interesting. This is an interesting pace for Levitz for this title. It feels that he's okay taking his time unraveling what is going on, and whether that works or not for us as readers, like that's what we'll discuss, but I don't know what you felt about that.
No, I felt similarly. Given especially my complaint or my criticism of the previous issue, which seemed to be kind of plodding along, not a lot going on in that issue, and then this part, chapter 2, just like, okay, we're going to resolve everything that was built up in the previous issue and apparently transition to the next, literally the next chapter, but the next act, if you will, of the story. And yet it is a 4-part story, and I don't feel like we are halfway through the story at the end of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose it depends on what happens in the next 2.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends on, as we go through the next 2 chapters, what is Levitz and company? What is their focus? I went into this trying to remember parts of it, and I'm remembering big beats, and I guess I forgot the smaller beats, or I forgot that they, so far in these two chapters, they're telling the story from a different angle, from a different. We're not looking at it like here we go, forward. The train is going right this way. It's almost like here's the Universo project train, and the story where we're reading it from is the next train over, coming at it like, I don't know, like a different angle or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a different storytelling approach for Levitz, I think, given everything else that we've had before, where things, while, because he has all these subplots going on, and they weave in and out, and the main stories continue and they change over time, but we get kind of this not almost, a soap opera-esque style of storytelling, of revealing the points. And this is very, it's a branded story. The chapters are very clearly delineated here, and it's 4 parts. Although, we do know that they did announce last month that this is a 4-part saga or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he's just trying a different storytelling technique with this, while still employing a lot of the same techniques that he uses all the time.
Yeah.
And does this work is my question. And I'm not sure yet. Obviously we haven't got to the end, so I can't rate it on that quality, but so far it seems uneven a bit. I think that's kind of like my general reaction to it.
Yeah.
While I actually did like this one a little bit more, because we get a little bit more action, a little bit more movement of the plot forward. It's not as I'm transitioning to general thoughts here, so I hope you don't mind. But it's not as interesting as some of the stuff that we got in the previous issue.
Mm.
So it's this weird tug of war almost, as to this different stylistic choice that Levitz and company are making.
Yeah. Plus, it'll be interesting once we do wrap up all 4 issues, because this is a storyline and a subplot that has been going on very underneath, very in the background. Whether it was science police officers with their brains wiped, some random villains showing up, and then that's how Ron Vidar gets hurt. the whole thing with the president. This is all stuff that, for the Legion to, if they look at it, they're not seeing all the pieces, right? And it's just this thing that's bubbling until Levitt says it's going to explode in these 4 chapters. Whereas something like the Censor Girl mystery was very much, it almost was on a upwards trajectory. It was kind of subtle.
Yeah.
And then once Brainiac 5 got his mind wrapped around it, it became bigger. And then all of a sudden, the stuff with the Fatal 5, those, whether it's subplots, suddenly become main plots, and then explodes into, what was it? It was issues, 24, 25, 26? So it was like three parts at least that kind of culminated everything, if not 4. So, but that was different. Like, I don't know, it'd be fun to sort of, like, I don't think he would it have been as interesting reading like who who is Censor Girl chapter 1, you know what I mean? Like that year long. No, it made much more sense. It wasn't the Judas Contract, right? Like that we were waiting for that to happen. So this is kind of like a mix between who is Censor Girl and Judas Contract.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I really enjoyed how the build up that we got for the Censor Girl mystery and then culminated in 3 or so issues. But this weird demarcation of this Universo project. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how this is going to work out, and what it means, going forward. Knowing some of the stuff that I know already about future stories, I don't think we get another thing like this until the end of the series. Isn't that right? In terms of almost like a mini series within the series type thing.
Outside of the Superboy stuff, but that's because there's 2 issues in 2 other titles, and actually Superman, and then after that, I mean that's where my memory is not gonna be strong, because I don't remember, and I wonder if it's just more of the Censor Girl type storyline. If there is anything major happening, it's all happening slowly until Levitz decides to resolve it, but there's no branded issue anywhere. It's just maybe an anniversary issue or just random issue. And I have to imagine, as you mentioned, the halfway point, this storyline very much is the halfway point of the entire volume. We got to get some wrap up. Like you mentioned, you talked about last episode, Levitz apparently was only supposed to go to issue 50 and then decides to go longer. So there's a ton of stuff yet. We know that Starfinger has to come back. We know that the Superboy stuff comes back. Millennium comes back. Stuff with the Time Trapper has to come back. So I feel like it's going to be a lot of like finales. There's going to be like a finale after finale after finale leading us to the finale.
Oh, wow.
So it should be interesting.
How depressing.
Oh, but that's okay. That's okay. Because then there's a whole other Legion universe on the other side. I'll continue with some general thoughts. I wrote here, there is a small weakness to the overall mystery. We don't get a lot of Universo. We don't get a lot of any other Legion of Superheroes members that are not involved in off-Earth adventures. So Element Lad in the last page, that's the first time we've come across someone on Earth. So we're not seeing it from that viewpoint, and I have a bigger thought that'll connect to that later. So I wrote here, maybe it's Levitz's way to put a stamp on characters that he really enjoys. He did say in a previous letter column that you and I talked about in one episode, I forget what it was, where there was a discussion about what are the core characters of the Legion of Superheroes. And he pointed to Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, Brainiac 5, and Superboy. So right there are 2 of them that are in this story. Okay, lots of potential, but I can't really judge it on that because I don't want to judge it on the future, right? This absolutely does play off of chapter 1. It answers questions. It brings up new ones. It tells the story point A to point B, or maybe point A to point AA. and I really wanted to get to point J,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Like I said, this being the second of 4 parts, you would think that we would be further along in terms of the overall story, not just of the prisoner's story.
Yeah.
And we do get a nugget of that at the very last page with Element Lad. But that's not enough. To me, the pacing of this is not even.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I should go to my big thought now, or I don't want it to, or wait until later. Let's just keep talking smaller points. One more thing, which I'm sure you probably tapped in on, because this came from you from last episode. I did enjoy that this was a Chameleon Boy issue in many ways. In many ways, we learned some things, if not necessarily about Chameleon Boy himself, things about how Chameleon Boy thinks of his teammates.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got that with Saturn Girl in those Mindscape segments, scenes in the first chapter, it was done in the way that her power allows it to be done, which is why it was so interesting, because we got into the heads of these characters. Chameleon Boy doesn't have that, so maybe it's not as flashy and comic booky, but I still learned a lot from his point of view. So kudos for Levitz and Company for, if that's what they're going to do with the other 2 issues as well, that's great. Then I'm looking forward to it, and especially with like Dream Girl, because I love her in this series. So so I did appreciate that. To your point, like you said last episode, you hope that it continues, and I think it did.
Yeah. That was one of the things I did like about this was that the character spotlighting. And precisely his relationship with these characters, especially, well, I'll talk on the more particulars, but he makes some comments about Dream Girl specifically that I find very interesting. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this, and I'll have some other thoughts later, but
okay, so that's kind of like, other than my big thought, that's sort of my general feel. What about you? What else? Any other big thoughts, or do you want to jump in to the cover?
Now let's go to the cover.
Okay, yeah.
I think I jumped the gun there a bit, so on our thoughts there. So sorry.
No, that's what I think. Because I feel like there's not going to be a lot of big concept stuff like we were able to talk about last issue.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And I think we're both on the same page. This is chapter 2. We're excited for how it fleshes out. We're a little sort of like, ooh, come on. But I think because I did write this in my notes, I want to make sure I don't try to outrace the creative team, because they've been fair with all of their other big storylines. You know what I mean? Like, where we've had a lot to talk about, or there was movement, and maybe it didn't go the way we wanted to go, but at least it went somewhere. And this one, I'm going with them, even if it is a little frustrating, I'm going along with it. So what do you have about the cover?
So, we talked last time about the banner and the character. Chameleon Boy is quite clearly on the cover there, so that I like that continuity. We get that, of course, with the next 2 issues, so that's nice. Interesting though that he you could say that he's looking over at Saturn Girl if you put these the first 2 issues side by side. Whereas, and I did look at the other ones, of course, they're all looking at us essentially. So odd that Chameleon Boy is looking askance. But other than that, another similarity I noticed, we kind of get this, I don't know, we had last issue, we had the Legion headquarters being attacked, and now we have a giant robot. So another metallic based thing that's center of the cover, and it's being attacked as it's about to attack them. So you get that continuity there. We don't get that in the other 2 issues. So it's it's a weird connection to me. But other than that, it's a nice generic superheroes battling a bad guy cover.
I'd like that it shows the other beings on this prison planet, which have
Yeah.
turned out to be all superpowered beings or space police, science police. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be really interesting. Now that you mentioned that, how many covers do we actually get where the majority of the characters are not Legionnaires?
Right.
That I would think that would be extremely rare.
Right. So last episode, when we were talking about the issue, I said, "Wow, that girl in the gold armor, she looks really familiar." I was like, "Did we read?" No, it's the reason she's familiar is because she's on the cover of this one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I looked, I was like, "Oh, that's why she's familiar. She's on the cover." So that was dumb of me. This scene on this cover definitely matches an interior scene that we will get to. We get our first appearance of Atmos on the page, on the cover. We'll get him on interiors, but this is the first time outside of like a holovid that we actually see his persona, even if it is from the back. But my God, to have to draw that kind of character from the back with the missing shoulder blades and tricep, like, wow. You know, good on Lytle to be able to turn him around.
I wonder if did he actually draw it out completely and then remove those parts?
Oh, yeah.
Either way, back then, I don't know how they would do that kind of stuff back then, but non-digitally, in other words. Now I would think it'd be pretty easy to crop out that kind of stuff if you're drawing digitally, but back then, I don't know. Maybe he just did it as we see it.
Yeah. Brainiac 5 is there. We get the back of Dream Girl. I'm assuming that's Dream Girl down below because the hairstyle. Unless it's one of the other captured prisoners. If I had to make any sort of reasoning like why Lytle might have drawn Chameleon Boy looking that way, maybe it's because of, especially after reading the issue, his sort of inquisitive nature and him wanting to get to the bottom of things and sort of, his focus is indirect as opposed to Saturn Girl, whose focus is like right to you,
Yeah.
So you could story tell it that way, I guess.
Yeah. I would have then turned his head the other way then, but
maybe it would have looked like he's facing the scene.
That's true. You're right. Yeah, that would not have been good. Yeah. Another thing about this that I thought was interesting, again, comparatively to the first issue of this, is that we kind of get our own point of view as if we are there looking on the scene. With the first one, we have all the weapons right in the foreground with the headquarters in the background. Here, we're right behind Dream Girl watching the action. I thought that was kind of cool, the way that Lytle decided to do that. He doesn't continue that though, so.
I do see it as sort of like a sense of we are very much a spectator to these covers. In very deliberate, like we're learning about this story just like they're learning about this. That's
true. Yeah. That's exactly that. That's what I was keying in on. Is like, it's very much trying to draw us in as if we're there. I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah. And these are the only covers. It's a shame, shame we don't have another cover to compare it to. We don't have another trade to compare it to. I mean, this has never been collected. It's just so unfortunate.
In fact, I think a letter column writer said something, or I'm sorry. I was reading something on a website, on a Legion-centric website, and they made a comment about how this has never been collected, and they thought that was a tragedy.
Scandalous. Just scandalous. Okay, Forgotten Planet. Since it is a Chameleon Boy focused issue, should we start from that? What
Sure.
thoughts do you have about? Yeah, let's jump in there.
So immediately, like the second page, right? Yeah, second page, we get into this where they're discussing what to do, how what's our next steps. Santa Girl says something about trying to figure out who's behind this. I couldn't find any clues, at least not yet. And then she starts to offer what her plan is, but maybe and Cam interrupts and says, whoa, wait a minute. He says, we could go back to our barracks quickly and pretend nothing's happened. That's the only wise move, he says. Remember, I'm the specialist in duplicity and subtlety on this team. And Brainiac 5 says, agreed. So they totally shut down Saturn Girl. But that's one of the things that I kind of glommed onto with this was, Cam has always been, or long been, I don't know about always, but he's been the leader of the Legion Espionage Squad, right? And this is not the first time, I don't think anyway, where he's asserted himself when the correct situation arose and said, no, this is an espionage squad matter. This is what we're going to do. And that's not Cam, generally speaking. He's very much kind of a background character in terms of the Legion group. But yet when something like this comes along, he very much goes into leader mode, and it's just not something we get to see very much of from him. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed that part of it anyway.
It very much felt like a passing of the baton from chapter 1 to chapter 2.
Yes. Yeah.
About the second or third time as I read it, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. This is literally Levitz is like, Saturn Girl's done, Cam's next. and I didn't take that, what he said, that little interjection that he gave, like I didn't take it as like confrontational or anything. He was just like, almost like just a very soft suggestion of, she was probably going to do something very confrontational, and he's like, no, we need to ride this out just a little bit longer because we still don't know everything.
Yeah.
And for a character that hasn't had much play in this volume to date, he's been in in stories, but not the main focus, right?
Yeah, he's a constant presence, but he's not really doing a whole lot other than, aiding his fellow Legionnaires in various fights. So
right. Yeah. Out of the four of them, Dream Girl has had the most screen time. I guess you could argue Brainiac 5 as well, but I think we've talked more about Dream Girl than we have Brainiac 5.
That's true.
And then Saturn Girl, or maybe Chameleon Boy would be next, and maybe Saturn Girl, just because she hasn't been in the book for a long time. But even Saturn Girl has had, the Trinity has had some focus in an annual, in issue 12 or 13 or 11 or whatever that issue was. So it's nice to see that Levitz is like, right, this is a situation where these characters all have strengths. I showed you Saturn Girls. Here's Chameleon Boys. And that was great. That was really great.
It also makes me wonder, and this is not the first time I've wondered this about the Espionage Squad. What, I'm getting all Legion nerdy here. What are the protocols for invoking this? What situation has to present itself to then prompt Chameleon Boy to say, "Wait, I'm in charge now."
Yeah,
this is espionage business.
I mean, let's get a little headcanon-y. I mean, he's an alien. Everything that Saturn Girl talked about last issue, he's an alien with things that they can't understand physically, senses probably that they don't even know he has beyond just the antenna. His perception, go back to the cover, his perception has to be off the scale. And in this situation, where he's finally woken up and able to sort of think about what's going on around, and then Sensor Girl saying things, or even on the first page, Dream Girl's like, what have we been doing these past few weeks? And I was like, weeks? It's been weeks? Because some of those other subplots that we get feel like they happen day after, just hour after hour.
That was something I was going to ask you about, because that surprised me as well, because we had that discussion. You asked the question, how long has this been? And I think I said it based on what we've seen, it seems like just, a matter of days, but yeah, it's been weeks. And how many weeks?
I mean, unless it's just their perception, but I didn't get anything in the dialogue that's kind of countered that. No, it feels like weeks because you've been in your head, but it really hasn't been. There's nothing in the dialogue that could counter that. So that was just crazy. But the thing that Cam says, our minds, our memories, our identities, might as well call it our souls. He's kind of getting right to it. Same thing as Brainiac 5. I mean, they're asking questions and probably already starting to figure things out. But this is a Cam issue, so it goes right to right to Cam. So I love that Levitz allows him just to take over, and that the other ones are totally okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, to go back to your point.
It makes me want to go back and research this a little bit just to see the evolution of the espionage squad. And I'm sure that it's not on the page. It's just in a story. It suddenly is there, and then they just appear every once in a while. But just it'd be nice to see if that role ever evolved in any way. And like I said, for some reason the minutia of Legionnaire protocol just really fascinates me.
Yeah. But it opens up a whole just some great stuff with him, with his character for the next couple scenes and for the next couple pages, which I love.
Do you mind if I touch on, since we're talking about, you just quoted him in that first page about we might as well call it our souls, right? Not to make it about Dream Girl, as I often do, but I was noticing the stances of the characters on this first page. So they are aware, they know what's been going, well, not to any great detail, but they know that they've been obviously imprisoned, but what happened to their minds, right? The mind wipes and the blocks and all that stuff, and now they're free. And Brainiac 5 just simply says, "My head's still aching from your telepathic invasion." I thought that was kind of an odd choice of word, invasion, given that she did it to free them and help them with this. He could be a little nicer, but more importantly, the way that Dream Girl is standing there with her arms folded, she's kind of bent over a little bit. She's almost like in a standing fetal position, so to speak, right? And she says she's in pain all over her body. What have we been doing these past few weeks? But the way that the shadows on her face and the way that she's holding herself, that doesn't look like complete, like it's all about the pain that she feels in her body. So I wonder, and then the thing with what Cam said about the souls, that made me think, are we seeing a bit of trauma here that they're suffering from? At least Dream Girl.
I mean, Saturn Girl said that they all especially Brainiac 5 and Dream Girl had very strong wills.
Mm-hmm.
So to lose your will, if you are someone who has such a strength of will, probably is very shocking.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I could easily see that. And we're going to see more from her about the unknown of what happened. So yeah, she doesn't like to not be in control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So right away, as Cam sort of figures out the situation, just a couple quick points. I wish LaRoque or Levitz would have used a little more, would have had Cam turn into something more alien each time instead of just an earth bird, fish or some kind of fish, like plankton, although that was used well. Because I kind of was like, wait a minute, I know there aren't any jailers on this prison planet, just those little robotic spy eyes flying all over the place. But are there other animals on this planet? I don't remember seeing any, so wouldn't a spy eye go, oh, look, there's a bird that shouldn't belong on this planet, zap.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I would have liked a little more attention to detail about that, but I guess that's a small point.
I much like a lot of things involving Levitz, it's all about the plot and getting things to the next step, right?
Right.
So Cam needs to fly around to get the lay of the land. So, I've got Lytle on the brain. Who's
LaRoque?
LaRoque, just draw him in something, flying around, right?
Create a transparent bird from Zapapas 4,
exactly.
Whatever, like just so that
a little bit more imagination. I agree. It's just like Cam has always been a little too Earth centric, but that's a sci-fi trope anyway. Whenever you have a shapeshifter, because what do we know? All we know are the things that are around us, right? So we can extrapolate on those things and make an octopus look like sort of an octopus, but a more alien octopus, but it's still just an octopus.
Right. So let's go through. I'll jump a little bit here. I want to get to those points where Cam is
Hmm.
either investigating or talking about his fellow Legionnaires. So like on page 8,
Yeah.
this is something you alluded to earlier. So he's walking the grounds. He sees Dream Girl. She throws him a wink. He is not cool with that. And this is the insight that I talked about earlier, that, just like we got with Saturn Girl, we're getting with him. And he says, when we're in this kind of situation, you can't afford to break character like that. It destroys the disguise. I'm used to that, but the others aren't, of course. So it's just the beginnings of like him talking about his fellow, his other 3 Legionnaire members.
Do you take that the I'm used to that comment to be because he's a shapeshifter, or that he's used to skulking around as an espionage squad member, or both?
I think it's both. I think it's probably both. I mean, it's more wrapped up into the idea of being a spy, but it's also coming from a shape changer, because isn't that the thing? He even says it later. I can change into all these things, but I still can only use the senses that I have, or right. It's not like he can become a Kryptonian and then suddenly have all those powers.
Right.
Right. Now watch, there's probably some Silver Age story where that happens, but there's I like that, I like what he had to say, and it does make sense that it would come from Dream Girl, not to put that down negatively on her, but that she's not as experienced in that, but it's not a smart move though.
Yeah, but what did you think about that in terms of the character? Does that ring true to you that she would do something like that?
Or it's just Levitz he wants to get into the head, and this is really the only way you can do it.
That's how I took it. It's just like, well, this is convenient, but it doesn't. I don't know. It didn't seem quite right. But then, obviously, the other 2 would never.
Right. Exactly.
They wouldn't do that. So
right. Brainy winking. That'd be crazy. But then, like the next page, then on page 9, is very small. Saturn Girl was right. It's an island, and the sulfur seas on all sides are pretty disgusting. No way to swim through that. Basically talking about the environment and what he needs to do. He doesn't have to go into like big dialogue like they did with Saturn Girl last issue, but just by confirming things like, okay, yes, Saturn Girl was right. There's another place where he says, I can't find where the page is. There it is, page 12. Her Saturn Girl's intuition is usually good. Like it was a lot of these little tiny moments of Cam acknowledging his teammates and really just sort of getting into his head about those other characters, which I appreciate. Small things. It's not going to put us onto like some kind of like hour-long conversation, but it's just, I was like, that's great. That's good. I do want to know how they relate to each other. And I like that he respects her intuition. That's awesome.
But apparently not so much Dream Girl, because on that same page, he helped her out with Atmos, and it says to her, it looked like you needed an assist or acting lessons. That's and then he flies off, and then just thinks to himself, silly. So he's not very impressed by Dream Girl at the moment. But as a biting comment from Cam here, I think.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll connect that to a later thing too, when there's a couple moments about acting in this issue, and how people can see through acting and things like that. So while he calls her silly, I don't know, sometimes I always want, now in this situation, yes, it's very true. She was really thrown off, meeting Atmos and coming to realize that they might have something going on that she doesn't know about, which is kind of creepy, Paul Levitz.
Yes,
but,
yeah.
But wait, let me continue with Cam then. So then he investigates. Oh, look, my issue's falling apart. The staples came out.
Oh no.
Or the page came out of the staples. He becomes that fish. He goes to the fountain, which is where Saturn Girl was trying to swim through. Great. All right, so we're connecting back to that. Discovers this underwater recycling center. Uh-oh, that should cue us in. And when he pops back out again, because a spy eye was on his tail, here again is another moment on page 14 of the team working together. He's learned something. He goes immediately to Brainiac 5 with information, the calculator, and Saturn Girl's like, wait, don't worry about it. Zap, zap, zap. By talking, it's going to take too long. Here you go. And they totally trust. They're like, great. She puts them in telepathic rapport, and now they're all up to speed. And I was like, yay, teamwork.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. You said that you used the word investigates, and that was one of the things I was going to comment on earlier. Mm-hmm. When he's flying around and stuff. He very much is in detective mode. He is taking notes. He's going back to the beginning and methodically going through the steps based on the evidence that he knows or the events that he knows about, and corroborating certain details with what Saturn Girl relayed to him, like you were saying. So, that I really like that aspect too. That shows more about him and how he thinks, which is also interesting to me because given the internal nature of his being that we kind of got a glimpse of last issue via Saturn Girl, is it because how at least Cam is anyway, how a shapeshifter is so malleable in physical form that maybe his mental processes is the opposite? Or is that just simply his own discipline over time to be the person that he is now? It's just that kind of, I'm totally extrapolating here, but that kind of stuff is just fascinating to me. And that we get that stuff, just little tidbits, just little glimpses here that I can extrapolate from. And I think that's a hallmark of good writing, of good characterization.
Yeah. I like that, what you said about him retracing the steps. I didn't think of it in those terms, but that you're exactly right. He's very much playing Batman,
mm-hmm.
And that's why we are getting, and I think you're right about how he might think of it, because Saturn Girl's issue, I would have to go back and read the Saturn Girl issue again, but it seemed like it was more emotional, trying to get him
reactive.
Where's my husband? Where are the other Legionnaires? What's going on? What's going on here? Oh no, I gotta hide from this spy machine. Oh no, I gotta get my lead. And this one, you're right. Maybe that's why the issue felt the way it did, because it's more of a detective story, if you mm-hmm. want to call it that. To a little degree, not to a major degree, because there's plenty of action and all that other stuff. So, no, I love that. I love that notion. That's great.
Has Cam ever been Legion leader?
I don't know.
I'm guessing not. I don't remember a time where he was, but it'd be very interesting to see him lead the Legion, given his ability to process things in the way that we are shown here. Yeah, but then again, maybe he's more of a functionary leader than an inspirational leader, I guess.
Yeah, he was never Legion leader or deputy.
Yeah, see, I don't understand. He should at least be deputy leader at some point. That doesn't make sense to me.
It's all a favoritism contest,
I know.
Right? So
yeah,
that's the problem. Because they allow us to make the decision. Certain characters are never going to be like, has Colossal Boy ever been leader? I don't know. The characters like that, like Block, is never going to be a leader of.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
Mm-hmm.
So. I think that's pretty much it in terms of like that direct. Well, no. On page 17, when they, and we'll talk more about some of these other points, but when they manage to wake up the other prisoners, Cam is right there, and he says, "All right, who's got powers? I need you to help me analyze this underwater thing." Like he's still right on it. there's a lot of confusion going on, and as they should, all the Legionnaires are trying to corral everybody, and he's also being very direct because that's the thing that's been on his mind of like, I need to get to this thing. Who can help me? Because that's going to have, we're going to figure it out. So that was kind of like the next stage. So we got like small bits in this issue of what he thinks of Dream Girl, what he thinks of Saturn Girl, and just that he immediately goes to people like Brainiac 5, like just like he knows why they are there and what he can use them for in his quest. But none of those three could help him with water, right? Because Brainy doesn't have his force belt. So he has to rely on, okay, now we got all these I have 20 other superhero. One of you has to be able to breathe underwater. Come on.
And then we do get, because then, there's 10 more pages before we get to this other thing. I don't know if you want to go to this yet, but and he just kind of takes more of a background during the fight with the robot and whatnot. But he is instrumental in bringing down the robot. Everybody else is kind of keeping the robot busy, but he flies into the robot and disrupts its circuitry. So he very literally saves the day in this story.
Which, from Paul Levitz's point of view, I mean, he should. I mean, if it is his book, his chapter, I agree with that. Before you go on past that, though, I was a little confused on the artwork on that page, though, on 24. Because he talks about becoming an insect, but doesn't it look like he's becoming black goop and covering the robot's arm? And
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I get it. In the second, he's grabbed by the robot on page 24. The third panel, you see the pop, which means he's transformed, and he says as a tiny, but it's this weird like shadow effect spreading from the fist to the body to the. Was there miscommunication in the script and the artwork?
Yeah,
because that doesn't, and also it doesn't make sense if it is covering the robot. Why is there's this blang sound effect? What is that supposed to mean? And then the last page, he pops off of the head. Doesn't look like he's coming out of any crevice or anything like that. So something was not right there in the sequentials.
Agreed. Yeah, I guess I kind of missed that, but I do remember reading this going, well, that's a weird shadow effect.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. That's that seems to be a miscommunication there.
Like maybe he turned into, like a dark nebula squeezer, and like he covers, he's like a boa constrictor and he covers it and then he squeezes you, and that's like, or
some oily thing gets in there and mucks up the circuitry, and that's the blang, but yeah, that's
so okay. So that was my little thing about the artwork on there.
And then on page 27, again, he's still in detective mode. He's still analyzing the situation, even though now at this point in the story they are off planet and ostensibly heading home.
Right. This is a great page.
He's as they're all strapped in there. No one's asked the really interesting question: why us? Never mind the other prisoners for a second. Just think about us. Out of all the Legionnaires, who would pick the four of us to kidnap, and why? Which is exactly the question I think we brought up last time.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad that they're actually addressing it in story,
and that all three of them go right to it. Right? Like none of them are going, yeah, you're right, Chameleon. Like Timberwolf would be like, yeah, I guess so. No. All three of them, right? Like Dream Girl, right in. We're not exactly the most powerful Legionnaires. We haven't worked together closely on any cases. Saturn Girl, our powers aren't similar. And Brainiac, whatever the reason, I'd assume our unknown enemy has singled us out, and I plan on returning the compliment. He's going to make his brain work and figure out who it is.
Well, and speaking of that, that's the thing I really like about this is that it's not Brainiac 5 that's bringing out the fundamental question of this situation. It's Chameleon Boy, again, continuing that through thread of him as that kind of a, the detective like character of the story. So I really like that. It's doesn't always have to be Brainiac 5 who outthinks everybody else or thinks of things that nobody else thinks of.
Right. And now that we get to that, and I realize that's the last. So that's the last panel with them, and then the last page is, we cut to something different. Oh no, okay. I thought maybe Levitz was playing. I was really going to call Levitz a genius because it ended with Brainiac 5. I thought chapter 3 would be Brainiac 5's chapter, but it's not. It's Dream Girl on the cover.
Yeah, see that, and I was thinking the same exact thing. It seemed like this seems to be transitioning more towards Brainiac 5, and yet that's not what happens next. So that's interesting.
All right, that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure next issue, the transition will happen somewhere, if at all. But, it just would have made me love it one more little bit.
Yeah.
Should they have figured it out by now? Or is Levitz just stretching out the mystery for us?
Yeah. Well, considering what you said last episode about Saturn Girl and the situation last time that this happened with Universo specifically, yes, come on. What's with that Kaluan brain that's not picking up on this stuff? Brainiac 5 too,
or Saturn Girl. I mean,
Well, yeah.
And this is. I guess I'll go to sort of my big point. I feel okay. So we've referenced that two-parter before, right? Levitz has said this is based on Adventure Comics 359 and 360, which is the same damn plot, more or less, where Universo becomes president, masquerading as president, not just vice president. Makes all the Legionnaires outlaws on Earth, puts something in the water. He creates this purification plant. Everybody on Earth drinks it. They're all hypnotized. Okay. And in the meanwhile, because the Legionnaires are outlaws, a few of them decide to save the day with a train accident. And then they fight some people or whatever. And then that small band of Legionnaires get sent to Takron Galtos. On Takron Galtos, they are prisoners. Superboy is there, Mon-El, Saturn Girl is there. I think Dream Girl is also there. I can't remember. Oh wait, I have it here. Yeah. Ultra Boy, Mon-El, Superboy, Colossal Boy, Element Lad, Matter Dear Lad, Light Lass, Dream Girl, and Saturn Girl. So 2 of the people in this story were on that same planet. But in that planet, Universo left their capture up to the wardens of Takron Galtos, the prisoners. And he just said, I don't care about them. I got to worry about the ones on Earth. So I was like, oh, not only is it the same story or an expansion of that story, because we talked about last episode that Levitz is coming he knows that he's coming to the end of him writing the Legion. He's like, I kind of want to tell this story again, but more modern and, in my own way, blah, 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 blah. He's telling this story from the imprisoned Legionnaires' point of view now, not from the people on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's almost like I think we mentioned this before, where Universo has kind of learned a little bit from his many inept adventures to try to take over the Legion, where, for instance, okay, he's not going to be president. He's going to be vice president. I can control I don't need to be there, right? So I can be on the sidelines in the shadows. Okay. He sends these prisoners. There's no human wardens or alien. It's robots, right? And he's now taken that water hypnotizing chemical and thrown it to the prisoners. I don't know what's going on Earth. So it's like he flipped the two things, right? And it's like Levitz is giving us, because when I read that 2-parter, I think I mentioned that the second part I liked the second part a lot, where it was like, they were outlaws on Earth. They were using their powers. They were, if I was a 12-year-old kid reading that, I would have loved that issue, you know. But the first part was kind of a little slower, methodical, because they were just in shock about everything that was happening. So now Levitz is deciding to tell the story in reverse, or the plan in reverse. paying attention to the captured legionnaires, giving them, making sure that it's by his hand that they are captured, not leaving it to anybody else. Even if he's not necessarily controlling them himself, he's making sure that the thing that happened before doesn't happen. So it's weird because I think we talked about, like, in a way, Levitz is almost writing the story as if that adventure story never happened. You know, like, it's like when Bendis did the Clone Saga in the Ultimate Spider-Man. You know, I'm going to tell it again, but in a new way. But we know it's the Legion, and they have a long continuity. But also in some ways, it's like, I know that story took place, like, what, in the late 60s or whatever, but damn it, don't they have memory?
Yeah.
Can't they look around and go, wait a minute, I'm doing the same thing I did when Universo took us, you know? And the same thing with where she sits there on the Saturn Girl sits on the one on the floor, and she tries to, on page 10, and she tries to call out to Garth, her husband, Lightning Lad, and she did the same thing in that 2-parter, where she was at the end of the first parter, she was like trying to reach out, but there was a protective barrier, and she knew at the time it was Universo. She had figured it out, but wasn't able to tell anybody. Now, in the same damn situation, and she doesn't know it's Universo. So that's where it makes it. If you didn't read those 2 issues, it's never going to mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
I read it so close. I don't know if you read it, but I was like, and so it's like, we both are like, hello, why don't you know? So I can't fault Levitz on that because I understand what he's trying to do, but
right.
It's a little frustrating. But it's a little cool too that he's reversing the story. So
that's true. I had picked up on that as well. Just these little tweaks to it, just enough, right? But that's the problem with continuity.
Yeah,
it messes with us.
And maybe it's a charm thing. Maybe it's like you always want Universo you always want to kind of go, this ain't going to work out, dude. It's just not going to work out no matter what you try.
It makes you wonder, does Universo have, do you remember I remember seeing this at one point, it being a thing in Batman comic books where the Riddler, he actually was one of the smarter of the rogues galleries, but he had this weakness where he had to put in something in his riddles that would allow Batman to actually solve them and then capture him. And the Riddler knew this. He knew this about himself, but he couldn't help himself.
Well, where's the fun if you write riddles that don't lead back to you? That's cheating almost, right? Like,
right.
You want, right? Like the gamesmanship, you need that gamesmanship, or else there's no value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's really how they should have played that out. But it was more like this weird thing in his brain that wouldn't allow him to do it. And he knew it, but he couldn't help himself. Right. And so I was thinking about that in terms of Universo. It's like, how many times is he going to try this? And
until
yet
it works.
and yet, he blames his son as sort of his scapegoat, his Achilles heel, because his son always would throw a monkey wrench in his plans and cause his downfall with the Legion. This is going to happen again. Obviously, I mean, he can't win, right? That's not what this story is about. But it almost seems like he can't formulate a sufficient plan to actually accomplish what he wants to a point, right? It's like he just can't do it.
Yeah. And
you only get that if you do accept those previous stories that were, decades old by now. And at the time of this publication, let alone now.
Yeah, right.
It's just I was just thinking, like I said, I was thinking of the Riddler, and it's like, well, this guy has the same problem apparently, because even though he's tweaking things a little bit, it's like play a new tune, buddy. Come up with something else.
And maybe, right? I don't remember the ending. Maybe there's something Levitz is going to throw at it, or like we said before, or like we said before, it's not the point where, like the Who is Sensor Girl mystery was about Sensor Girl, That was
Yeah.
about Sensor Girl, about the team. This one, the Universo project, that's the Universo project is what is happening, but that's not, it's not about Universo. It's about
Of
everything
course.
sort of around,
Yeah.
and he gets to write, he gets to write differently. That Adventure Comics two-parter took place in early 1967. So, I mean, it's almost exactly 20 years
Oh, yeah.
that this story comes out. So
That's two generations of comic book readers if you go by the comic book publishers at that time. It's like every
And-
10 years there was a new audience. So
and were those stories available in the
Oh,
mid
yeah.
80s?
No.
Certainly not in trades, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
So it was either in your collection or it was too expensive to buy. I don't know what the back issue market was at that point.
Or they were doing reprints, like the digests,
right.
sometimes the treasuries. I don't ever recall. I mean, I didn't get every one of those reprint items, but I don't ever recall reading that story until now.
Yeah, I mean that two-part adventure story was reprinted in one of like the Superboy and I talked about it last episode.
Oh, right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, at least again, it could potentially have been in people's collections.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, because that's right. Because that issue was
70s, I think it was in the
7
in the 1970s.
Oh, okay.
Jim Starlin cover.
Okay, so approximately 10 years before that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they could have had that one.
Yeah. I guess it really. We'll have to keep looking at the letter column and see if anybody's like, "All right, you're just ripping off this thing," but he admits it.
Well, yeah. That's one of the things I like about Levis. He's like he has no qualms about going. Yeah, I just wanted to retell the story. Right. No big deal.
So the notion of acting comes up in two other places. Page 10, Brainiac 5 says to Saturn Girl, she's trying to mind whammy jammy her way out of the force field around this planet. She says, I'm fine. I was just trying to reach Lightning Lad and the children. I didn't really expect it to work. Brainiac 5, the Legion has to be looking for us. And she's like, of course. He says, you don't have to fake the Ice Maiden with me, we have been friends for a long time. And she says, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he says, never mind. But if you need me, remember, I'm here. You've been there often enough for the rest of us.
Oh my God, I love that scene.
Character insight, which, again, going back to our point, Levitz wants to tell us something about these characters. Yeah, great scene. Why did you like it?
Well, okay, so I found it interesting. Okay, there's a couple things. One is that Brainiac 5 is being the consoler, and that's not a role that he normally plays in the Legion stories. And given the losses that he has experienced recently, i.e. Supergirl dying, and Ron Vidar, we saw his reaction to his death. And we talked about this in I forget which issue it was now, but he had that night out and he seemed to be having fun and connecting with other characters, even non-Legion characters. And then the ball drops or the shoe drops or whatever drops, and the anvil, and he gets the news about Ron Vidar, and that just that could break somebody, right? And yet here he is, being someone showing compassion, friendship, and being the one to initiate that with Saturn Girl. I thought that was extremely touching and fascinating for his character.
Right. And if you're just go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you're just reading this issue, it might feel out of character, but we're not just reading this issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And all those points you say add up to this moment. Plus, Cam's not going to do it. He's out investigating. Dream Girl's not going to do it. So.
Okay, and because there's that connection there with Dream Girl. I think you mentioned that before. But before we do that, so Brainiac 5 mentions Ice Maiden, the Ice Maiden thing with Saturn Girl. You have made at least one, if not more, comments about Saturn Girl as known as the Ice Maiden. And I was thinking when I got to that, where did that actually come from? And so I did a little bit of searching. This may not be the first appearance of this, but it was definitely the one that I found in my Google search. But in issue Legion of Superheroes issue 274, Phantom Girl, who is reeling from the apparent death of Ultra Boy in the previous issue, when Saturn Girl goes to console Phantom Girl reacts angrily and calls her an ice maiden, and even accuses Saturn Girl of not loving Lightning Lad even though they're married. So I thought that was a nice bit of continuity. And so, but given the specific reference here, it seems like, and also kind of your reaction, or not your reaction, your mentioning of that, it seems more like that this is something that is more known than from just that particular issue. But I was curious if you had any knowledge about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason I started to pick up on it is because people would say it in the letter columns, right? Like every now and then somebody would say Saturn Girl, the Ice Maiden, the Ice whatever. But probably this is the first time it's on the page. Like maybe, I don't know if we talked about it during the Legionnaires 3 miniseries. I can't remember if that notion came up, of that thing. But what it really comes down to is just that she is the mother of the Legion of Superheroes. And mothers don't always have to be emotionally present, Sometimes they are stern for reasons, And so in the Legionnaires 3, when we had that discussion, what were the 3 words? It was like heart, courage, and something else, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
And we talked about, okay, who was going to be Heart? And I think I put it to Rock and gave Saturn Girl something else. So I think that's how it worked. Because we brought up the notion that, usually the Heart would be the female character, right? But I think I'd have to go back and listen to that.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Right. But that's the thing of it. She is the Legion matriarch, and she has earned her place. And in many ways, in this volume, she's not afforded that position because this isn't her era, right? So maybe that notion never had to come up because she hasn't really been in the present.
Yeah.
If I read those, I don't know, if I read those early Silver Age stories, the Cockrum, the Grell, whatever, does that come across more where she's more sort of very direct? I do remember some early Silver Age stories where she is like, it's like, oh, okay, she's sharp. She's very sharp.
I remember us talking about some of those early stories in relation to some of these issues, and she's
You could see
I could see it. Yeah, I could totally see it. Yeah,
right. And really, that's a bunch of men writing female characters.
Well, that's true.
For little boys to sort of recognize, right? Like, here's the go-go girl. Here's the stern mother type. Here's the girlfriend. Here's the bossy one. Here's the cute, shy one, right? That's why Shrinking Violet is Shrinking Violet, right? Because she's the wallflower, right?
Yeah.
People recognize those tropes. So all of the Legionnaires, you could say at some point or another, are just facets of somebody's personality, just individualized. So, and then to the larger point is where she says you don't have to fake the ice. I don't think she fakes it in the way that Dream Girl does. We can talk about that scene in a second. That's just who Saturn Girl is. She's got so much history and lineage. She has to be Saturn Girl, because she has to be there. She has to do these things because of the expectations. So, I get it. I don't think it's not as calculated. It's not fake. It's just she has modes. She can kind of switch into those modes. Whereas, where's the scene? What page is the scene with Saturn Girl? It's almost like Whisper Down the Lane. And then she throws it to Dream Girl, right? Like, isn't that, what page is that?
26.
26. There it is. Right. So Garth must be scared half to death. Not as badly as I will be when I finally get to a mirror, Saturn Girl. No one's paying attention, Dream Girl. You can quit acting. Who's acting? My hair feels like it's been shampooed in mud. And I feel like I don't think she is acting. I think she's really she's putting it out there, right? I don't know to who. It's not like there's a lot of, there's no audience around. That's why Saturn Girl's like, there's nobody paying attention. But I don't know, that was fun. That was fun.
Come on. Dream Girl's saying this to the telepath.
Yeah.
Saturn Girl knows. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sure on some level, Dream Girl she is concerned about her appearance, and this is her way of dealing with the current situation. But yeah, I tend to think Saturn Girl is spot on there.
Yeah, no one's paying attention. You can quit acting.
or maybe it's more of a reaction of, oh, really, you're concerned about your looks right now.
Right.
She's a stern mom at this moment.
Yeah. What an awful planet this was. And really, Dream Girl didn't have much to do in this issue either. We can talk about her thing with Atmos, but she didn't push any of the story bits, and although she did help out with that damn Rock'em Sock'em robot.
Oh my God. Yes.
Right?
That's what that thing reminded me of.
I'm telling you, I looked at it and I said, wait a minute. And I Google searched. It is almost a spitting, slightly futuristic version of a Rock'em Sock'em robot. The blue one. It totally is.
That is awesome.
The joints, the square head, circle at the joints, the thing. Yeah, listeners, go look up a Rock'em Sock'em robot and then look at this thing. So my notes, that's what he's referred to as. But doesn't she? Yeah, there she is. Wait, let the creature. Oh, yeah, this is a great moment she has on 23. Dream Girl, let the creature get out in the open first. We need room to use our power safely. It's not too smart. Let it chase you toward the surface walls, which allows. And then she says, stand back, let a legionnaire handle this. She takes leader mode, right? Like, you know what? I didn't even write that in my notes. Yeah. She really does take. Oh, there it is, page 21. Watch out. In 8 seconds, the lasers will fire all at once. Duck.
Yes. Yeah. And that, I had that in my notes as well. And that's the kind of stuff I would love to see her do more in these stories, especially in the fight scenes that we get.
Yeah.
Whereas, I made comments about her, there's nothing interesting about a character who dreams up what's going to happen, in an action comic. So having her do these kind of things, I think is a nice way to get her out of that kind of background mode. And of course, certainly with her taking charge, which we have seen as that's not out of character for her. She will sometimes just assert herself like that. She
did that in the villain war when Element Lad disappeared and she sort of took over.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she's done it. That's great. And then I wrote here, so I did actually make a note of it. I wrote here, that's why she's dangerous. That's why she's here, and that's why she's one of the four, because that's how she is. She can go from needing to shampoo her hair to outsmarting a big Rock'em Sock'em robot. And that's why she's Dream Girl. That's why she is, I think, she's becoming our MVP of this title in many ways. Yeah.
Yep.
So speaking of Dream Girl, we should go into some other areas here. Dream Girl and Atmos, leading us to Atmos, the first appearance of Atmos, and then maybe talk about some of the other superheroes that are on this planet as well. So why don't we dig into some of that?
So is on page 8 when Chameleon Boy identifies him, that must be Atmos. I saw his holo on Starboy's report. So is that the first time we saw him? We've seen him?
Yep, that's the first in person other than the cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then and then on page 11, right, is the next. Yeah. Then we get that scene with him declaring his extreme gladness at being near Dream Girl.
And to be fair, he is under the whammy jammy. So you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um,
Yeah, but real. I mean, really. What? So what is Levitz? What is he intimating here? Were they intimate?
I don't know.
It sure
Please,
seems like it.
I'm glad to be near you again, friend. Please stay with me, friend. Yeah,
Well,
I don't. Ooh.
the emphasis is on stay. Please stay with me, friend.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is weird. It's kind of creepy, like you said.
Plus, Levitz writes, he gives Dreamgirl a thought balloon. Suddenly, I'm very glad I don't remember what I've done since I was brought here. Ouch. You know, like it's a little too roofy,
Yeah,
drug
yeah.
culture,
I,
like,
I
oh.
I did not like that. I did not like that at all.
Yeah.
And see, that's also kind of where I was getting to that whole trauma thing. Is like if what happened is what we think happened, I could totally see her just having a really bad reaction to all this.
Hmm. My hope is that it's just because you made a point that they're very much they're what did you write? Work, you said work, eat, sleep, right? They're just very, you know, like humanoid robots. So maybe companionship is just another one,
Yeah,
and that's it. They
I
just
I sure hope that's it, but I don't know, man. This does not, to me, does not just say companionship here.
yeah. I hope
So
they just sat against the wall and just kind of their shoulders touched, and
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, they were field mates. I don't know.
Right. Apparently,
Uh,
we are going to get more Atmos in some future stories, but until now, I don't think that question is going to be answered
mhm, mhm.
unless we get a little bit more. Well, it did make me wonder, though, too, like in the very first page where they're talking about what Saturn Girl did. I wondered if her powers were strong enough that she could pull surface memories while they were under the influence, but maybe not.
Mm, mhm.
Um, but we do get to see Atmos, and not only do we see him in this state, we get to see Atmos. He sort of takes over once that big Rock'em Sock'em robot crashes in. And a letter writer wrote this, but I also felt this too. He's very much like the Captain Atom Firestorm of the 30th century.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
straight down to a particular hairstyle. Firestorm with the fire hair, and
Yeah, yeah.
he's got the mohawk.
Mohawks were big back then too.
Right.
Well, yeah,
Nuclon and
we even have on page 18 we have that big panel of him revealing himself in his super suit,
right.
with this that weird we can see through him body part thing
Yeah.
for some reason, but then this is where I can totally see the whole firestorm thing with the atomic energy fields around his body and his hands. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's a neat design.
I guess now that you say it, the way we draw atoms that's the way he is drawn. Where they do have empty space, they have the swirling nature, and then he's basic. I guess they're trying to personify what an atom would look like with his design. That's why you got those empty spaces. Yeah,
sure. Although it's just weird that they cut out most of his chest for that. I don't know. I don't understand that, but okay.
What did you think of the heroes that we saw? The ones that we got to know about, the Silver Sword, and Enerjax, and
Zira
of Mana 5, the planet that we just keep coming back to for some reason.
Wait. So where have we seen Mana 5 before?
Mana 5 is in the Baxter run, was the planet that some Legionnaires were on when the controller zapped them away for that second story.
Okay.
And it is also the true connection is that was Baxter issue number 19, is Superboy 195 was the first appearance of Wildfire. That's the planet they wound up on.
Okay. Yes. that did spark a dim memory, and that's probably where I do recall that from. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Gas Girl is identified by name as well in this. So so Atmos, Zira, Enerjack, Silver Sword, and Gas Girl. Gas Girl is from the Heroes of Lalor, and so she's the only non-new character of the named ones. We also get a bunch of other ones that are just by appearance. They're just there. We do see the Thing in here, so apparently he stopped off
right
on this planet.
Yeah.
This is on page 16 for those who want to check it out in case you missed that.
Right. Did any of them give you the notion that you wanted to see more of them?
I want Zira to join the Legion. I think having like a did she just control water? No, she says something about elements. My power over the elements. Oh, maybe that's too much like Element Lad in some weird way. So, doesn't that her power set, doesn't that make her like a great potential member for the Legion though?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like the notion of just they're not as I did right here, I hate when the letter column writers do this, and I'm doing it. I think under Lytle, some of these characters would have been a little more interesting looking, but that's unfair. But I liked them, and I always like the notion that there are more superheroes in the 30th century than we see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Planetary champions should just be a thing.
It should be. Yes. Yeah. It shouldn't be just Atmos.
Right.
I love that. I love that concept. And I really wish they had explored that more than they have. So, and considering, so to go back to what you just said, the designs. So is Silver Sword on that list of just like you would have liked something a little better for her?
I don't mind that one. I think
okay.
I think that's actually kind of interesting, and it does say something that all the other ones aren't in costume, but she is. So that's how we saw her last issue. So that armor is probably her. Maybe she's like a cyborg or something like that.
And she's featured prominently on the cover, like you pointed out. We saw her before wearing the golden armor. But yeah, it's interesting thing. So one of the things I did is I not only listed these characters, but I also listed what their abilities were, and really all we saw was the sword, the armor, but apparently her sword can produce blasts, because I think she blasted the robot with that. So it's an interesting power set, I guess.
Yeah. And other ones in the background, some with agility, some with force bolts out of their eyes or their hands, some with strength. Everybody's in prisoner gear, so I gotta give it to LaRocque and company for they're trying to show their different powers as best they can without them actually being costumed.
And having a more central part of the story.
Yeah. And whether it's through what they directly do or sound effects or whatever. And really it's just a way to Levitz to show, like Saturn Girl says, I think it's Saturn Girl. She's like, we're Legion of Superheroes. Listen to us. It's kind of like she's getting there. And then Trimi throws that rock at the spy eye or whatever. It's like revolt, right? It's again, a callback to the two-parter, where they branded themselves revolutionaries basically and resistance, leading the resistance. And that's where we get the information that they've been under control, that they altered the chemicals in the water that were controlling them, again, like that old story. And we get to see Atmos at play and just his dialogue. And he's very sure of himself.
Yeah, brash, not all that bright of a bulb.
Right, because he's not a himbo or anything like that. He's just he's kind of He's got power and he's got a status and he knows it. And he's almost like a wrestler, like the way like a wrestler.
Yeah.
I'm the champion. And when I find out that, what, it's not going to take a week. I'm going to find this person and put my foot on their neck or whatever he says at the end. But it's good to see him because we had a whole issue where we just talked about him and now we get to see him. So hopefully we see much more of him soon. Oh, grand personality is what I called.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, one more thing about the 4 legionnaires on the planets, and then we can branch out here. Page 26. Let's meet up with the legionnaires who must be searching for us. Famous last words. Are they really searching? We don't know, right? We don't know yet, and I don't think they are.
Well, the ending certainly suggests otherwise.
Right. And then on page 27, so they use the innards of the robot to create ways to fly off the planet. And then I think it's Brainiac or someone says, think of the genius it required to find that world and convert it to a prison for heroes, and then to capture all those heroes and keep them harmless. To which I that's another one of those moments where I'm like, or just use your memory. But that's okay.
Well, yeah, and I actually had this in my notes, and I forgot to bring it up when we were talking before about Universo, and you contrast this, his ineptitude, his repeated ineptitude, with this comment, the genius of it. I don't know. I think Levitz is kind of overstating Universo's role in this whole thing,
right?
But
will they be surprised? Right? Will they be surprised? Like when it is Universo, will they be like, what? It's Universo.
Exactly. What's the reaction going to be? Or is it, probably I'm predicting is just going to be like, oh, Universo. Okay, let's get him. That's going to be it. There's not going to be any kind of commentary, I guess, from the Legionnaires.
They did that with Starfinger. Remember in that one issue, they were like, what? Starfinger? Huh? He's causing this trouble? So
I guess I guess it would make sense that they would provide some commentary there. I hope they do, because we made much about the repetitive nature of that character. So
right, and I guess what we really need to look for is that sort of revelation when it is Universo, and does it make Brainiac 5 click and go, that's why Ron Vidar is dead, right? Like, are they gonna? Or is there anything that comes out of that? So I guess we'll have to wait and see, because I don't remember. Okay, let's go to the other locations. I guess we'll just start from the beginning. Wildfire and company on Hycraeus. What did you take anything out of that scene?
Just really, it's more of an artistic thing. The stuff with White Witch on pages 4 and 5. I love that.
So good.
Everything's white except for her outline, the red eyes, and just the color palette of that. I love that. It's a great contrast to everything else in this book, let alone what's on those particular pages. So I thought that was really cool. What LaRocque and Gaffer did on this.
I also like how the bubble that she is in is kind of an extension of herself. Like her powers are an extension of herself. The way the bubble looks like it's coming out of her sleeves or her body, the antennae, like all of it's just really great.
Mm-hmm.
Wildfire opening up his visor to blast Zamir. Is that a thing? Does he do that? On page 3?
Oh yeah, he did. Usually when he opens his visor, he flies containment suit. That's not right.
All right.
I mean, I have seen
liberties.
Okay. No. I guess that could be. So yeah, because we clearly see the visor up when he's blasting, and then the next panel we see the exhaust, the smoke or whatever, coming out of that little fin on top of his head.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Is that a continuity error or just
I
Just
don't know.
just a mistake, just a huge mistake.
Yeah. This is where my Legion weaknesses come into play, because I'm sure someone else would be like, you can't do that. But
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
whatever.
And I believe I have seen him blasting out of his visor, but it's never up.
Mm.
But I could be wrong about that. But on page 7, we get him. So this is after Zamir has transported the Legionnaires away, or at least most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And another robot attacks a Legionnaire here in this issue, with that robot going after Wildfire, commencing dissection of containment suit housing sentient energy called Wildfire. Breep. What the? What the hell is the robot? Who's the robot talking to? Why?
Himself.
But
well,
yeah, I mean, that's interesting, especially, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the cover to the next issue, we see
right.
We see the aftermath of that, I guess. So
yeah.
that's kind of neat.
I mean, Zamir says it, right? He says, taking wiser allies, learning more of that shall you be the difficult way, kind of giving readers a nod that, okay, so he's not working with the Legion of Supervillains, but he's working with somebody, that there is somebody behind it, at least for Wildfire and these other Legionnaires to learn. And I thought it's kind of interesting that Zamir, as a villain for these 4, not only does he have the connection to Hycreus because of what Tellus informed us in like an issue 2 ago, whenever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Zamir is also kind of like an amalgamation of these 4 Legionnaires. He's non-human, like Wildfire, in a containment thing, like Quislet.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fish, like Tellus, or whatever, or sea cucumber, or whatever. And even matches kind of like, White Witch is in a bubble and he's in a bubble. Like there's that. I doubt Levitz has made that decision consciously, but I'm looking at it and going, wow, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that Wildfire is playing with rookie members. Like he has Tellus, who can barely engage. He has Quislet, who only acts when he's told to act, and White Witch, who's got to like do homework before she can do anything. And he's, and there's Wildfire. He's like, guys, do something. Come on. So in many ways, that's smart, because that would be Wildfire's role. And if you're gonna send 3 rookies, because White Witch is she's still a rookie. You send it with the one that is probably going to do the best. So, yeah.
But in story, why those 4 on Hycreus?
I think we surmised that they're the only. Well, they said they're the only ones who could, because they can. They're all basically non-human.
Sure.
In many ways.
But it's like Zamir teleporting them to environments that they can still survive in. Or in Tellus's case, as he says here, he has transported me into this fluid globe and taken the trouble to make sure I can breathe. So either that's just Levitz going, well, I can't just kill him, so I'm going to give this flimsy reason, or obviously Universo wants them alive for some reason.
Yeah.
So is that a larger concern? Is that a larger bit of the plot that we just haven't gotten to yet? This is just the first smattering of it? Or because we did talk about last time, why not kill the Legionnaires? Why go all this trouble and expense to trap them? These Legionnaires are as trapped as the other 4 were. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, we're gonna have to wait till next, because I really have no idea. I mean, he puts White Witch in the exact opposite of the environment she was just in, hoping that'll throw her. Yeah, keeping them occupied, because I think I mentioned that. Is it because they are so alien that his mind wouldn't? How do you hypnotize Quislet? You can't.
Right. Sure.
Right. Tellus is a sensitive, is a telepath sensitive, just like Saturn Girl. You're not going to do that. Where's Wildfire's brain? He don't got a brain.
But he did do it to Saturn Girl. Tellus should be no problem.
He did it with Saturn Girl with chemicals, right? I guess it was through the chemical of the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, there you go. Water. It's water. Tell us you can't affect water. Tell us it's probably
Yeah.
sense that right away. He's like, ooh, what's coming near me? There's like chemicals. He
That's
lives
right.
in the great mother ocean with the methane, right? He probably is
Mhm.
very sensitive to that.
No,
Yeah,
he probably would have loved being on the prison planet then.
yeah, maybe. So we have to wait and see on that.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that stuff. But then let's go to the other one, the one with Mon-El, Ultra Boy, and Block. This is the scene that totally negates the whole this story is taking place over many weeks, because it's like,
Yes.
did it really take them that long to get out to the Dominator space?
Right. Right.
Maybe, I guess. I don't know how big the universe is, you know.
as big as the plot needs it to be.
There you go. That's right. What'd you take from that scene? if
What
anything?
Okay, so all these other ones, even if we have questions about them, there's a certain amount of sense to them, right? The prison planet, we've talked extensively about that, but Hycreus, there's something going on there. They're actually, they're there because they're trying to track down Atmos, but it's a trap, and so we just saw the trap being sprung. Okay, so there's something else that comes next. This deception, I'm going to take these powerful, tough players off the board, but then Relnick fires on them. How does that make any sense whatsoever, given who is there? Unless the spaceship they're in is some sort of super powerful anti-Daxamite weapon, which we don't get that. But it's just I understand this. It seems like there's no trap here. Not even other than there's really no trap here. It's kind of like the plot just dies right for this part of the story. I don't understand where this is, what the point of this is.
Yeah, unless it's a hypnotizing ray or something. But why did you have to go all the way out to Dominator?
Exactly, and involve the Dominators in this complicated plot? It's weird. This is the one part of the story that it just on the surface doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. There's a lot of questions that Levitz has to answer, and I know we're going to get them, and we just have to see if they make sense
Sure.
logically or whatever. Because the only other thing I could think of is, okay, you're right. They are the most powerful, especially Mon-El and Ultra Boy. Is it because they have super hearing that you got to get them that far away from Earth so that they don't turn around and go, oh, what the heck is going on Earth? But I don't see any evidence of that. That's just us, maybe, unless that's Levitz going, come on, figure it out for yourself. Why would Universo send Mon-El, of all people, weeks away from Earth? It's because he don't want them anywhere near Earth at all.
Yeah.
Sense-wise or power-wise, Yeah, it's a little it's a clunky scene. Like even the Dominators, we have learned of your treachery and desire neither your treaty or your presence. Do the Dominators know what's happening on Earth?
That's
right?
that's what I took. Yeah.
Okay.
They are aware of something, if not the actual extent of what's going on.
Great.
So, but then why does Universo send Relnick out there? Other than the distance for the Legionnaires.
Yeah.
Why not send them somewhere else that ultimately ends up not being anything?
Because I guess they would turn around right back around again. I don't know.
They're going to do that now.
No, he zapped them.
You're right. I did take that as like a laser blast or something from the ship. It could be something else. You're right.
Maybe. Yeah, clunky. There's a lot of missing parts to it. This is what I meant, that this issue answered questions and then opened up a ton more, including like the last page. Before we get there, though, I don't like how DeCarlo draws Block at all. However, I will say this. I finally understand what Block does. He blocks. Right? It's been there the whole time. Block blocks. He
Right
says
in front of our faces.
It is. He says, and I will prove the futility of them returning any fire like so. He's standing in the middle of, he blocks a ray blast. That's what he does. Block blocks.
He's the best. He's the best at what's the Wolverine line?
I'm the best at what I do, and what I do is block. I don't know, I guess. That's the only thing I can think of why he is who he is, right? Because he's such a mountain of a man, of a being. And I haven't read those early stories of him with the League of Assassins and all that other stuff. But if he literally just stands there and people bounce off him, oh, I get it now. He's a wall. That's why he's called Block.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did learn that. So
it would only be even more obvious if they called him Mountain.
Right. Or wall or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, great. Love it. I love that I learned that. I don't even know if that's right, but I'm keeping that. Block blocks. What does Block do? He blocks. It's, it's like the first time somebody's like, well, what does a burglar do? They burgle. It's like, what the burgle? What is that? Is that a word? Apparently it is. Or butler. What does a butler do? We buttle. It's like, what? What does that mean? Yeah, burgle. It's British. Enter a building illegally. Okay. So, block blocks. There you go. There you go, folks. You learned something new here. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before, so I'm taking credit. All right, let's go to the last page. Element Lad, Siobhan. What do we make of that?
Other than obviously the reveal here, we know Legionnaires are not looking for them. They're not trying to help. I take this to mean through Element Lad's appearance that the rest of the Earthbound Legionnaires are probably under the same sway.
Yeah.
So, things. This issue is spent in large part trying to make us feel better about the Legionnaires' plight, and then we get this last page, and then wait, things are worse than you thought. So I like that turn at the end of this issue, and I assume then we're going to get in the next issue, we're going to get more of what's going on Earth, and not just these quick appearances with Universal that we've got these last two issues.
Right.
So
right.
and not to mention, just it's kind of creepy that the Legion leader is under this sway, and the cavalry is not coming. So that's I like that. I like that reversal of fortune, so to speak.
Yeah. And it'll be fun to see who are we talking about? Element Lad. We haven't seen Dawnstar. We haven't seen Phantom Girl, Shadow Lass. What other? Magnetic Kid. Of course, he would get hypnotized. Polar Boy. Yeah, I mean, it's all these people who just have sort of powers, but nothing mental or no strength or. I mean, I'm probably generalizing, or anything to do with the senses, other than Sensor Girl. Like, where's Sensor Girl and all this? That'd be very interesting. Yeah,
exactly. She should have known about this.
Yeah, maybe.
Given what we've seen.
Invisible Kid, he got zapped. Colossal Boy got zapped. Lightning Lass. Yeah. So yeah, maybe it's gonna make sense. Maybe Levitz is, I hope it's going to be real fun.
Surprise us in some way.
Yeah, I hope so. So. And we should probably then talk about the one Universal appearance that we have here on page 15 at the Metropolis Presidential Palace, where the elected leader of Earth, the president of Earth, is automatically the head of the United Planets Council. I was like, that's awfully selfish. How's
Earth-centric, yeah.
Yeah. At least the Federation in Star Trek, the presidents are usually always like some alien thing, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But they automatically, probably just goes back to the whole, it is the mother planet, for the colonies, right? So but that could make for an interesting story.
Yeah. And it would also, if this were not the case, it would also perhaps, either prevent or curtail Universo's reach in terms of the other Legionnaires and what's going on with them. So, because I'm assuming he is using United Planets resources to accomplish what he's already set in motion here. So.
Right. And what's this new idea that he has for the
exactly?
Legionnaires?
Yeah. This guy's making it up as he goes along.
I mean, I wrote here, what is his ultimate goal? It can't just be revenge on the Legion. And if it is, what does that have to do with, what are his plans? He's at one time he said it was for his son. Well, his son is out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And in one way, I wrote here, this could have been an interesting look at what does a criminal do when he wins? Because in essence, he did win he won up to now.
Right.
So what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
We don't really see that. We see how a lot of stories in this situation, we always see, I guess remember that Mark Waid miniseries Empire with Barry Kitson, where he's like, I'm going to write a story about what happens when Doctor Doom actually does control the world,
right.
And what happens because of that. And I guess the logical thing is you write a story about the undoing of that, because otherwise it'd be very depressing. Star Wars is the same way. So it's just going to be interesting because in all of his stories that I've read, and I'm trying to read more of them, okay, he's Universo, he's no different than any other despot, and but it would be kind of cool to see something that he actually does. I guess we're just not going to get that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It would be wonderful to see Levitz turn his writerly eye on the villains in the same way, or similar ways in which he's doing it to the Legion characters.
Right, and he does I think he does in the sense that by giving them a final story, you've given them an ending. He's given a lot of, whether it's not necessarily an ending that, in the way that you gave Lightning Lass a journey and now she is Lightning Lass again. It's just an ending of like, okay, the back and forth conceit of the comic books where it's Batman fights Joker and then he fights him again and then he fights him again and like in the Legion, Levit's like, well, in my run anyway, once and done. That's it. Infinite Man done. Validus done. Mordru done. Universo done. Because he can't write any more stories like this again. So, So is that what villains are? Is that where they get to go? Which is why 5 years later is really interesting, because you do get what you said. I think you get to see them. You get to see a lot of the villains' minds, and I like that.
I wonder if where we were talking before about Levitz, his plan was to end at 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you've said before, he's wrapping up some of these elements of his run. And so I wonder at what point did he come up with this story to write the final Universo story, at least from his perspective. And then he decided that, no, I'll stick around for a little while longer. And then what do you do next? So I've obviously, you said before, we got the Superboy stuff coming up,
right? And he's good. He's writing that baby, right? Like he's not handing that over to anybody. Yeah.
And then I forget now what else you mentioned before about what's coming up, but and then we get the final story, which is the end of the series, and what all that means. So it's like, okay, so what other endings are we going to get?
Yeah.
Between now and then.
So I think what might be interesting is, because especially by this time the story ends, it'll be issue 35. I guess it'll be interesting to see how this title plays up to issue 50, the point when he was supposed to, because that is a pretty big issue from what I remember. And then it'll be interesting to see what the remaining 13 issues or 14 issues will be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be fun. And we've talked about that before, where it's like you had the Eye for an Eye story, then you had everything leading up to the new recruits, then you had everything leading up to Censor Girl. Now we had everything leading up to Universo Project. Next is Superboy. Next might be issue 50, and then the ending. There's little chunks along the way. So yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Next issue blurb says Forgotten Friends, but the letter column blurb says Forgotten Foe. And the title is actually Forgotten Foe for the next chapter. So they did.
Whoops.
Yeah, little confusion, little interesting mix up there. Let me see. I have a few things about readers' reactions to this issue from issue 38. Um, the best one was T.M. Maple's letter about
Yeah.
issue 33. Did you read that?
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. It was like he kind of went in on this whole thing about dreams and uh, just as it kind of relates to the situation here, that the four are dealing with on the prison planet, and which legionnaire most exemplified my own position. He talks about them dying in a way.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
probably the most interesting aspect of his fever dream,
Right.
or
What is it?
her fever dream. I don't know.
What does it all mean? But still at night in your dreams, you are alone, or are you? Levitt's response was great. We never subscribed to the theory of literary criticism that tries to read deep meaning into every piece of writing, TM. And we're a shade too optimistic to accept that life is a struggle as a central theme. Still, your speculations were interesting. I kind of felt a little called out when I read that. Come on, Levitz, that is the fun of it. Literary criticism is great. I love finding deep meanings where they don't really exist. Come on. Yeah, that's a great letter. Listeners, if you have issue 38, read that letter from T.M. Maple. I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Other things he mentions, I don't know if this happens between issue 33 and 38, but he says Atmos has met Starboy off stage, and their story will continue in issue 40. So I hope we get to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Legion of Substitute Heroes will return in the next annual.
Yes. I that's something I did not know about. So
yeah,
looking forward to that. And then one of them, I think, one of them compared this to the Super Stalag of Space story in Adventure Comics 344 and 345.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, another similar story from the Silver Age, right? So we get captured superheroes, not just the Legion, also in that story. They're put to work there by Nardo, the alien who captures them. They try to escape. Nardo is a three-eyed alien. Universo, you could extrapolate as three-eyed.
Yeah.
Supergirl, sorry, Saturn Girl telepathically communicates with Brainiac 5 in that story, as she did here. So a lot of similarities in that story too.
In the letter column in this issue, Paul talks about Dream Girl and says she's one of the smarter and stronger-willed Legionnaires. So there's, again, another reason why she's here. And then there's a letter. Go ahead.
Oh, I think you're going to touch on what I was going to say. So go ahead.
Well, there's another letter then about remolding the title and working stories. Levitz responds by saying, after 10 years passage, of course, that's going to be inevitable that he's going to, rebuild, go through some of the Legion stories and touch on them again. And that's very much in play with what we've been talking about, how this is Paul Levitz. For the first time, I feel like this is Paul Levitz's swan song. Like he knows he's writing for an ending, not just of this story, but the entire series.
Okay, that's not where I thought you were going with that. In issue 38's letter column, writer Kevin wrongly demands, this is my commentary, wrongly demands to give Dream Girl a rest because of her overuse.
Oh, no.
So Kevin is obviously not seeing in Dream Girl what we are seeing in these issues.
And that's the charm of reading month to month, right? Like if you're just reading month to month and you're not going back over like we are, like we're purposely taking notes, as a kid, that was the joy of reading it, So Dream Girl's machinations, it was, she's just Dream Girl,
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't this ongoing thing of, look at everything she's been through, between losing leadership and losing her boyfriend and dealing with, all this stuff. So no, I love it. I love I love that character. I think she's great. She's so good. Anything else on this issue?
I don't think so.
No, I think we mined that quite thoroughly. All right. How about that back cover? Justice League #1 coming around this time.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. Keith Giffen. Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, Kevin McGuire, Terry. Keith Giffen getting top billing. I don't remember. I guess that makes sense. It was his idea.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but that's a different podcast. So we go to the other corners of the DC Universe where the Legion might have appeared. Usually we go to Who's Who, which would be Who's Who 26 that shipped the same month, January of 1987. There is no Legion of Superheroes entry.
I know, it's so sad.
It is sad.
We don't get to end Who's Who with Legion.
It's an anticlimactic because we've had so much fun dealing with that. Now, of course, we realize there's going to be updates, and we will continue to do the same thing if they're in the Who's Who updates of 87 and, or is it 88? 88 and 89 or 87 and 89? I forget which one it is.
I think it's 88. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh no, 87 and 88. Yeah.
Okay.
And then of course there's one like in the 90s and whatever. But we'll do the same thing. We'll spotlight any Legion character that pops up there. I don't think it's many. And of course the Who's Who in the Legion of Superheroes is coming up eventually. Eric and I will discuss on how there's no way we can go through an entire issue in one episode because we'd be talking about everything. That would just be crazy. The closest mention or to anything Legion is in the entry for the 1000 in the appendix at the end, where they talk about they were going to try to kill President Reagan and Vice President Bush in the 80s. The plot was smashed by the new hero called Booster Gold, acting in league with 3 members of the Legion of Superheroes, Brainiac 5, Chameleon Boy, and Ultra Boy. Booster Gold has since had other run-ins with the 1000. So that's the only real mention, and it really doesn't mean much. We've already talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So bye-bye Who's Who. Also during that month, we can also wrap up our look at Legends, which again, even though it started with Cosmic Boy and there was a miniseries that spun out of it, there is no mention of the Legion. Probably the only thing I took from Legends #6 is that last page talks about the new beginning to showcase what DC will be from now on. The John Byrne Superman, the George Perez Wonder Woman, the beginnings of a new Justice League, where they all take Dr. Fate's invitation to, or whoever's invitation it is, to join a league. I wrote here, this kind of feels like a year one story, kind of like Justice JLA year one that Mark Waid and Barry Kitson did, but nowhere near as good as that series is.
It's a nice juxtaposition considering what you just said about what's on the back cover of the Legion issue.
Oh, sure.
The new Justice League, sure.
Yes, in many ways, Legends is kind of like the beginning of DC year one. The new DC year. DC Universe year one. Now I breezed through Legends #5 last episode, because I said there was no Legion appearance. There wasn't, but I totally forgot to mention, this is an addendum, that there is a scene between Guy Gardner and a character called Sunspot. And Sunspot was a character that had, like Mano, had a disc on his hand.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at the costume is very much a spoof on Starbrand. And the character is also a spoof on Starbrand.
Okay.
And the dialogue and the appearance, the facial appearance, is a spoof of Jim Shooter. And there's your Legion connection.
Ah.
Because if you look at the dialogue, the Sunspot is saying things like, "The ultimate power is finally mine, as it always should have been. From this day forward, I will show you all how power is meant to be used. I will remake this sorry world in my own image. You've no ideas the atrocities I committed to gain this power, and now that I have it, nothing will ever take it from me. I'm in control. I am always in control. Don't you know who I am, what I am? I wield the ultimate power, the power to create a new universe,"
Ooh.
which is what Marvel did at this time. They created a line called New Universe. So this is detailed in a number of places that this is Len Wein, John Burns poking at Jim Shooter, who was very much in control of Marvel at this time, although not for much longer. And it's just for 4 pages. It is just the creative team dumping on Jim Shooter and the New Universe, because apparently the New Universe was supposed to be Marvel's answer to the Crisis, right? Like they caught the bug that DC was going to restructure their universe and nobody knew what was going to come out of it exactly. So then, like, this, I don't think it's fact, but it's sort of like supposition that they were trying to create a new line of a new universe, right? To counter whatever DC's moves were, whether it meant let's put more titles on the stand because DC is going to put more titles on the stand. Let's show them how we can start from a new place and we can create a new integrated universe in that Marvel style where everybody is together, because people were saying DC was trying to do that. They were trying to Marvelize their universe by making it cohesive. So, you know, this is all just bibs and bobs from various interviews that never really were, I don't think it's true, but, and then eventually I think it was even wrapped up that the ending of Secret Wars 1 or 2, probably 2, where there was some kind of release of power from the Beyonder, that's what created the new universe. Was like
that sounds familiar to me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of it has like a lot of Crisis elements to it, and here they are. You know, I can't imagine this is John Ostrander, because John Ostrander didn't write for Marvel. He was an independent guy, right? So it has to come from people like Len Wein, and who wrote for Marvel, and John Byrne, who left Marvel because of whatever. And it's just so weird because John Byrne would eventually take over the Starbrand book for a while. Like, I think he ended the Starbrand book. Like, it's like, okay, that's weird. You're kind of being very hypocritical, which doesn't surprise me because it's John Byrne.
John Byrne.
Yeah. So I totally neglected to talk about that last issue.
Wow, that's, DC and Marvel have a long history of just kind of poking fun at each other, but that's almost seems a little, too personal.
Yeah. It's terrible. I mean, it's for the laugh of it, okay, fine, but to run for 4 pages in a series that already is spinning its wheels once again, like in issue 5, just spinning wheels, issue 6, just spinning wheels. All you're doing is showing these characters fighting when they shouldn't be fighting, and not giving any movement with the dark side story. Oh, let's just take 4 pages to goof on the new universe, which at this point had only been around for 6 issues. So, they're goofing on an imprint that was only around when they were creating it, maybe about 2 issues or 1 issue, So it's like, why are you wasting your energy?
Exactly. Yeah.
And meanwhile, the first bunch of issues of Starbrand were actually pretty good. I like that series. So
that's that new universe stuff is something that I did not get into. I just didn't have the money to invest in more comic books at that time.
Right. And they weren't all winners. But I've always had a hankering to kind of read all of those again. Or not again, to read them. I read Starbrand and some of Night Mask, but The new universe and the Marvel 2099 imprints, I've always been kind of curious about them. So
Although, I guess I could see DC kind of poking the fun as they did because, Starbrand's what, like Superman ish, right? Night
or
Mask.
Starbrand is more like Green Lantern in a way.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
got that thing. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
what? Night Mask is kind of Batman esque.
Uh,
Like I said, I'm not all that familiar with the
yeah.
characters. So,
He's more of a dream character. Giffen actually did
oh,
a couple issues of at least the artwork of Night
oh,
Mask.
okay.
Yeah. They were different enough. I mean, I think if anything, they were almost a little too close to some Marvel characters. Like Spitfire was a woman who controlled a giant suit. It's almost like Stars and Stripe in a way, you know.
Hmm.
And then what were some of the other? And then the other ones I just didn't read. I didn't read them. So Kickers Inc. Merc. Yeah, strange line. I'm curious about. So, and then that's it. In terms of like continuity, that's where the Legion. Oh, Booster Gold 15. Totally forgot about that. Did you look at that at all?
Mm-hmm.
This issue cements the notion that I have that DC is trying to use certain books to talk about time travel, cement what time travel means or what the futures mean in the DC universe. Because the Rip Hunter, Booster Gold, and some other characters are back in his time in the 25th century or something like that. They had to go back because he was getting sick because he's from the future. And they come into conflict with like time police. They're trying to figure out how the heck do we get back home. And we get some rules. One of the rules is scientists have found out that one may travel through time safely only once by any known method. In other words, once you made the journey in a machine utilizing the tachyon tracing process, they're talking about the device they used, the human body could never stand the stress of traveling that way twice. After the time shift, the drive unit burns out. So that's it. So then they go, oh, well, then we got to find a different way to get home. Because if you go, you can't use the same device twice, which is, I guess, DC's way of limiting time travel, right? Like, let's stop having these people who can just willy-nilly run through time. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but okay, why? What problem are they trying to solve here? Other than tying their creators' hands in terms of telling futuristic stories.
The problem they're trying to solve is that there are way too many futures in the DC universe. Because you got, right, like if anybody can time travel and they time travel everywhere, are all of those future years that they go to going to be consistent the next time someone else goes to, say, 2632 or 4008? You know what I mean? Like, so you limit it. God, it almost makes you wonder if like somebody was in charge, if they had to go, oh, you want to do a time travel? Well, then you need to talk to this editor because they have the rule book and they have everybody else that's taught. You know what I mean? Like who's the boss?
Like a script coordinator on a movie or something.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Oh boy. It's too bad that they felt they had to do that because, one of the tropes of time travel stories, especially in comic books, is that the future is not written. So what does it matter?
Right. I guess it's because you have stories, you have titles you have Booster Gold. Right now you have Booster Gold, Legion, and Hex.
Hex, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm touching on this issue too is because we're going to have a time travel story coming up. And I'm like, okay, you're writing these rules. Let's see how they survive. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I will predict that they don't.
In this story, since they traveled in a time ship that Rip Hunter created, so they can't use it again. They say, okay, well, we need something else. They do some research and they find a time platform in Metropolis confiscated from a Reinhold Borstein, So I looked up that name and I was like, oh, that's a character in Hex. That's a major character in Hex at the time.
Oh, okay.
Um, and you know, I've been kind of lightly looking at the Hex series because Giffen also draws a few of those issues. And yeah, that was the man that pulled Hex from the past to the future, or that's, you know, it's because of him that he wound up in the future. So I was like, there you go. There's DC mapping out their future like they did at the end of History of the DC Universe and at the end of Crisis. You go from the 80s to Hex, which took place in the mid 21st century, and then you go to Booster Gold's time. And Rip Hunter was constantly saying, wow, we haven't really traveled, we haven't accelerated our advancements in 500 years from the 80s or whatever, you know. And they mention it again, even though Hunter's name is mentioned in the archives, there are also many notions about information lost due to nuclear conflict, which is what Borstein was trying to get away from. That's why he created the time platform. He jumped past the nuclear conflict and the world was still a mess. So he's like, let me get Hex in here and figure it all out. So according to Hex, there's a world war coming in 2045. So,
and that all ties back to the Cosmic Boy miniseries, right? And the difference between what he knows of history and
right.
the payloads of the space shuttle thing that was going on there. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So
right.
they're totally trying to get their future history consolidated, just like they did all of the multiversal Earths.
Right.
So I totally understand why DC would want to do that. But I don't know, that whole idea, because I just looked up that page that you read from about the stress of traveling that way twice could kill you. That kind, it's like, well, that's really arbitrary.
So we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see how how all of this plays out, because we got Time Trapper, we got Superboy. Like, what's gonna be the deal? And those were your touchstones, right? At this time, it was only Hex and Legion of Superheroes, and Booster Gold's time. You could argue also characters like Abracadabra, their time sort of stayed the same. I think that was the 45th century. I forget where Abracadabra's from. It's no different than the Millennium books that we read from Bendis. They hit all of these specific things, and they kind of laid out, here's the future of the DC universe. Not that DC has played with it.
The more things change.
Yeah, right. So I don't know how much more we'll get out of the Booster Gold. I'll just keep looking, see if there's more Rip Hunter stuff and more time travel stuff. So, and then finally, we do get a new Legion title, 2 issues of the title that come out in January of 1987 from Independent Comics Group, which apparently was from Eclipse Comics. The Legion Index, issues 1 and 2. There will be, how many? 5, I think there are, right? 5 altogether. And these were, either they were called the official indexes, or there were other versions called illustrated indexes, where writers, Mark Waid being one of them, just wanted to look at it's kind of like the Wikipedia of the 80s in a way, or, issue by issue Wikipedias of, it started with Teen Titans in August of 85. You had Doom Patrol, Crisis, Justice League of America, Hawkman, and All-Star, and also Millennium, and then of course Legion of Superheroes. So Eric has all 5 issues. I only have the first issue. Shameful. What did you learn about Legion of Superheroes Index, the official index number 1?
Well, so it's interesting because, like you said, this came out in 87, and I didn't get these issues until probably within the last 10 years. Probably because I was thinking, when we were talking about doing this podcast, I was like, I need to get more reference material, and I went and bought the showcase collections that had come out by then, because there's a lot of the early history that I didn't have access to. And then I found these. And they're really just, the first issue is just a bunch of entries of the characters. So, who's who-esque type entries. And then they start into the publication history of the Legion, starting with Adventure Comics.
Right. Chronological order.
Yeah, in chronological order. So there's not a lot of actual pictures in here. There are the covers, but there's not much more than just the covers. And then just a bunch of text covering who's in the issues, what happened, kind of a thing. But there is an introduction in this first issue that I found out some things about Legion lore, publication details that I did not know about. I thought it would be interesting to pass along.
Mm-hmm.
So after the Legion first appeared in 247, Adventure 247, they didn't get an origin story for 10 years. So over those 10 years, they were just appearing in Superman comics for a while, right? And Adventure Comics. 10 years it took to get that now famous story of the Trinity saving R.J. Brand. See here, they also commented how reader demands of bringing back the Legion kept the concept alive for over 4 years in the Superman titles. And then in 1962, they got a continuing feature thanks to Mort Weisinger, starting in Adventure Comics number 300. And then 9 issues later, they become the lead feature. And then almost 40 issues later, in 346, they take over the book. So Adventure Comics becomes the Legion book. And then just a couple more things. I thought this was an odd bit of information. The introduction here references how Kurt Swan, quote, soon tired of drawing the Legion after about 30 issues. So Kurt Swan looms so large in my mind in terms of early Legion that just blew my mind a little bit.
That's a lot of characters.
True. Very true. But it's like 30 issues, not even 3 years worth of entries. And, who knows if that's 3 consistent years or, because some of these books were not monthly. I don't know if Adventure Comics was monthly back then, but anyway, I thought that was interesting. And then finally, it does also mention, to tie it all back to the Baxter run, it mentions how the Legion was one of the first comics in DC publications to get the, quote, hardcover softcover plan. And you have used that terminology in episodes past, and I've always kind of wondered where you got that.
I think it was in a letter column somewhere.
Was it?
Levitt,
okay.
Yeah, Levitt said hardcover, softcover, just for lack of whatever.
Yeah.
It was very. There were so many names: new format, offset printing, hardcover, softcover, Baxter. Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that the issues that they cover from Adventure Comics, their first appearance in Adventure Comics to 247, all the way through to Superman 155. The very next issue would be, I believe, is Adventure Comics 300. So this first issue is very much like, here's the Legion. If you want to read about all the stories to Adventure 300, here it is. And that's the same thing the cover is emulating as well, because all of these characters are all the characters that joined up to Ultra Boy in 1962. He joins in Superboy 98, and then Mon-El will join after, and by that time they are in that Adventure Comics title. I believe.
I had not noticed that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's the first 16 characters here on this.
Well, and that's one of the things I liked about that first issue too. Was it in the introduction or just after that, where they? Yeah, I think it is, where they actually talk about the appearances, the order of the appearances of the Legion through that publication history, and how they had to extrapolate based on this story and versus that story.
Right.
What were, in what order did these Legionnaires join? So I thought that was really cool.
Because that's, I mean, it's well talked about on various sites. People have dug in, and because every time you see in those early Legion stories, you see their backs and they're not colored, and it's like, well, who the heck is that?
Mm-hmm.
So people have figured it out, and they said, well, if Supergirl actually joined before Superboy because
right.
this and that and blah blah blah. I go, you know what? I'm just taking it strictly by who I see on the page at the time that I see them.
Mm-hmm.
So. My headcanon is a little different when it comes to, but I get it. I get that there is an order, So I guess for our purposes, really, if Eric finds anything, unless I get the issues too, if Eric sees anything that's of worth note, we'll talk about it. There's no way we can go through every story, every profile, but maybe we'll use it as reference material again, because each of these little indexes have comments. So in those comments, they'll say things like the Legion is incorrectly said to exist in the 21st century in this story. The science police are called the Earth Police in this story. So there might be some factoids that we'll get here and there that might relate to something we're reading at the time. We'll just continue to use Legion comics prior to the Baxter run as you called it, cited material, reference material. We're not going to start any kind of like retro review segment because these episodes will be 5 hours long. So
yeah,
there's no point to that. But as a way to talk about the Legion, sure, we'll look at it. The cover's cool. Yeah, it's speaking of Kurt Swan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, yeah. So it's the same thing we're going to have to do with the Who's Who and the Legion. We're going to have to find ways to talk about it without covering it as a whole.
Oh, I see here. So you mentioned before the official index versus the illustrated index. I had not realized that's exactly what's going on here between these two issues.
Yeah, I don't know what
first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just the first one is the official index, and the other one is the illustrated index. Not official illustrated index, just illustrated index. So, what's up with that?
What's the difference? Yeah, because it does the same thing, right? It just goes by issue by issue.
Yeah, the format's not any different, but yeah, interesting. I wonder if DC had a problem with the word official.
And this was compiled by Murray Ward, editor, Mark Wade, Andrew McClaney, writers, and then a whole bunch of other people, some reviewers. John Wells sounds familiar.
I do recall an interview with Mark Wade where he talked about his involvement with this index. And I think I might be getting events mixed up in my head, but I think that's what helped get him an editor's job at DC. But I like I said, I'm not sure of that.
What made him a super nerd? Super trivia nerd. So the indexers are fun. If you don't have them, they're great. I have the Crisis ones. I have Titans ones. I have the Millennium one.
That's the one I don't get. Why they did an index for Millennium, other than the fact that it was like the next big thing that was going on at DC.
Yeah, I think it was to hit on the crossovers and all
that
kind of stuff. I need to get the Justice League and the Doom Patrol. I need to get them all, but I don't know why I don't have those. So. Okay, I think we have exhausted our conversation today. Yes.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have a long episode to edit, Peter.
That's all right. It's all good. It's good. It's worth it. It's worth it. The Legion deserve our attention. So, okay. If you want to comment on anything we said, peter@thedailyrios.com or
longboxreview@gmail.com.
We will be back next episode with issue 34, the third chapter, the penultimate chapter of the Universo project.
Forgotten Friends? I mean, foe.
Right. Have a good holiday based on whenever you listen to this, whenever we get it released. And we will talk to y'all soon. As always,
long live the Legion Project Podcast. Take care, everybody.